Hello everyone, Mr. Bean 35000 VR here, and today I'm bringing you a video about a brand new update that has just been released for CTGP that adds 200cc to Mario Kart Wii. Now if you don't know what 200cc is, and you haven't figured it out but just by looking, it is a 1.5 times speed multiplier for every track in the game that you can turn on and off whenever you want from the CTGP Revolution channel. Now if you've ever played with speed modifiers before, you know that they're a little interesting sometimes. Particularly, it's sometimes very difficult to get around turns, and often when you go off jumps, you end up flying for miles and you don't necessarily land where you were intending to. So in the interest of playability, we've added two new features to the game that activate alongside 200cc whenever you enable it, designed to make the mode a bit more playable. The first of which is brake drifting. Now if you've played Mario Kart 8 before, you may already be familiar with brake drifting. Brake drifting is the art of pulling on brakes while drifting. Normally in Mario Kart Wii, if you want to pull on the brakes, you have to release the accelerator, and therefore, if you were doing a drift, you're going to lose it. Which makes you brake, and then if you're trying to turn at the same time, you end up using your handling stat, which for a lot of vehicles isn't very good. So brake drifting is the art of actually being able to pull on the brakes during a proper drift without needing to discard the drift, meaning that you can still take turns tight, and indeed tighter still because you'll be moving slower, and charge up a mini turbo as well. This means that any turns that could not previously be completed without slamming into walls now work pretty well, and it's pretty cool once you get the hang of it. And if you've been watching the video in the back, you may have already noticed that I've been doing some brake drifting around various turns like the spiral, which normally wouldn't really work. The other feature we've added is fast falling. Now fast falling is the art of holding the analog stick up when going off a jump or anything that gives you air, or if you're on a Wii wheel, tilting it flat forwards. And what that will do is set you into a nosedive position, and while you are nosediving, the gravity that is applied to you is increased, meaning that you will land a lot faster. So suddenly the issue that previously plagued 200cc of jumping for miles and not being able to really stick a landing becomes a whole lot easier. If you just tilt up, you will slam dunk towards the floor. It's not free. It does take a little bit of getting used to, and for those of you who are thinking, well, that kind of blows, part of the fun of 200cc is making the mad jumps, you can still do those. As long as you do not tilt the analog stick up, you will fly as far as you usually would have. Now I'm going to show you the CTGP Revolution channel so I can show you the new interfaces and how to activate 200cc, as well as some of the new interfaces in the game as well. So after doing the update, a few new options will be added to your settings menu to do with 200cc. For offline gameplay, you can find a 200cc toggle on page 3. When you turn this setting on, what you will see in game is some of the options that usually would be for 150cc will be replaced with 200cc. For instance, if you go into Grand Prix, you will see a 200cc button instead of a 150cc button. And if you try to do a versus race and go into the rule settings, you will see a 200cc button instead of a 150cc button there as well. It has to be 150cc to get swapped out for technical reasons, otherwise if you use the other buttons, it would actually slow 200cc down, so using the 150cc button to make life simple. For online play, you can only use at the moment, as of the time of posting this video, 200cc in friend rooms, and you do that by going to the specific engine class and setting it past. There you go. It starts. Where does it start? Normal. Scroll to the right. It'll go 100, 150, mirror, 150 and mirror, and then 200. Once you've got it set to 200, if you start your friend room, you will be playing in 200cc. There is Ghost database support for 200cc. To access it, what you want to do is head towards the leaderboards, and whenever you select a leaderboard that has 200cc ghosts available, you'll be able to pick, when you get to the category select screen after selecting, you can see 150cc categories down the left and 200cc categories down the right, which means that you can compete for world records and best known times on 200cc tracks, which should be quite cool. I'm looking forward to seeing what strats are being found for that. I know that several of the beta testers have already been working away trying to find stuff, so I'm very interested to see how this works. And in local ghosts, you will be able to identify. You can see in the category 200cc ghosts are clearly marked. So yes, in the game itself, as I was describing before, with 200cc enabled, you can see that 200cc is added as an option for Grand Prix mode, replacing 150. If you pick this, you'll be able to play 200cc Grand Prix. Similarly, Mirror, even though it isn't describing it, will also play at 200cc, so you can do 200cc Mirror if you so desire. I don't know why you would, but just in case you do. Similarly in versus race, if you hit up to the rules section here, you can see that 200cc is added as a replacement for 150cc. Reminder, this only happens if you turn the 200cc toggle on in the CTGP Revolution channel. If you do not do that, this will not show up. Don't worry, we've not erased 150cc. I don't want to hear anyone saying that we have. Please and thank you. For time trials, we've actually managed to add an extra menu interface to the game, so you don't need to activate the 200cc offline setting to do time trials on 200cc, because you can just pick here. You can choose to do 150cc time trials or 200cc time trials from this screen here, and the astute will notice that this is a repurposed mission mode screen that I'm using here. This is one of the mission mode interfaces that I've put to work for me as a time trial class selector. When you're doing 200cc time trials, you get separate leaderboards for them and separate ghosts for them, so when you load up a track, for instance, you will only see your 200cc times. For instance, this is a 200cc time set by me as a test. There are no staff ghosts for 200cc. We figured it'd be too much work to do another 500 ghosts for it, and also it would make the update time exceedingly long, and we didn't want to do that. So the only ghosts will be those that you've made yourself or downloaded from the leaderboards. But hopefully people have fun with time trialing 200cc nevertheless. And yeah, I think I will now show you a few more races just so you can see a bit more gameplay of 200cc online. So these races were recorded on a test build of the 200cc pack, but it's basically identical to what you guys are getting at the moment in this update. And I wanted to show off a few races that kind of put all the techniques I was describing about fast falling and brake drifting to the test. Now, Desert Hills is a fantastic example of brake drifting, because you've got to find a way to get around these hills at the end, and brake drifting, if you just watch here, is a fantastic way of doing it. You can make all of these turns pretty easily if you just brake drift around them. Normally, if you're at 200cc, you would end up either eating dirt or going exceptionally wide on those turns. Similarly, you can see a little bit of fast falling going over this ramp here, because I don't particularly want to fly too far, although that mushroom usage leaves a little bit to be desired. And once again, I think this lap had a better, yeah, you can see a bit more of the brake drifting. You can actually hear it and see the brake poofs as well, but watching the speedometer makes it obvious what's going on now. For brake drifting, I will say, it is possible to brake so much that you actually lose your drift entirely. That happens around 50 kilometers per hour. So if you brake drift to the point where you hit 50, then you're going to lose your drift. So just bear that in mind when you're doing brake drifting. Watch your speedometer, get used to how it feels, and you'll be taking tight turns in no time. Meanwhile here, I still waited a little bit to fast fall that one. An interesting choice. I'm not quite sure if I agree with my past self, but it seemed like it worked out for him, so that's kind of nice. And for this next race, I decided, we were testing a bunch of different vehicles actually, just to see how well they played, and so here is me trying to drive a Sneakster at 200cc, and it's actually remarkably doable. If you watch this, if you watch those brake drifts that I'm doing there, you can hold just about any vehicle around if you try hard enough, which is actually really cool. I'm surprised at how well it worked out in that regard. And I believe it is this race, possibly on lap 2. If you keep an eye on the Waluigi when it enters lap 2, you can see what you can do when you choose not to fast fall. If you watch, yes, the line he's taking right now, what he's done, he shroomed off a hill, off the top of that hill, and then leaned back so the fast falling wouldn't take effect, flew all the way across the track, and then landed on the cut on the other side, and then landed on something. Incidentally, that Waluigi is Troy, and yes, it is the real Troy who's been participating in these races. He was part of the beta tester group since he was one of the most enthused about 200cc and perhaps one of the most vocal about its development, so figured it was good and fair. If you've been watching his streams lately, you might have seen some of his activity on the 200cc beta update. Yeah, these races are going by so fast that there's a lot more I wanted to actually talk about, but they just keep disappearing, so there's that. See you that race, on to the next. And I figured I should definitely include at least one Rainbow Road race, right? But this is actually a Rainbow Road race on the Sneakster, and this is a good opportunity to see A, how unlucky I got with getting bumped by jet setters, but also that even a track like this on a Sneakster can be done with brake drifting, with the fast falling and all that stuff. Now, one thing I should probably cover before this video ends, just let this race play out in the background while I talk about this, is the controls for brake drifting. So I've already explained the controls for fast falling. It's analog stick up or linear Wii wheel forwards. For brake drifting, what you want to do is press both of your drift buttons, at the same time. What that means depends on the controller. So for Wii wheel, that would be 1 and B, along with the accelerator, which is 2. On a GameCube controller and the classic controller, they both have the same commands. It is B and R, along with the A button to brake drift. And for nunchuck, now in Mario Kart 8, Nintendo actually didn't bother making a brake drift control scheme for nunchuck. So if you're playing 200cc on Mario Kart 8, don't use the remote and nunchuck because it sucks. you can't do anything. But we decided that I figured out that D-pad down is not the worst button in the world to access from the A button. The unfortunate thing about the nunchuck is that most buttons are already occupied, so it was kind of awkward to pick a button that you could still get to that wouldn't hurt people's joints to try to reach. So yeah, I settled on D-pad down. So brake drifting on a nunchuck is A, B, and D-pad down. And now I will say that D-pad down has not been repurposed as another drift button, so you can't now drift using D-pad down or pull on the brakes using D-pad down. You can only brake drift with it, so keep that in mind. So yeah, meanwhile this race has been going pretty well. I've been demonstrating a lot of cool little things you can do, such as, the moon jump at the beginning of the level. You can take it shroomless just by hopping. And I've also avoided death more than once by brake drifting and other stuff. But yeah, as you can see, it's really not that hard to get around Rainbow Road, and I can't wait to see what kind of crazy stuff people do on the time trial leaderboards for this track. And that's about it. I hope everyone's hyped for 200cc. Hope you have a... Whoa, look at that. Hope you have a brilliant time playing it. Do enjoy, and I will see you all again next time. Thank you very much for watching.